Hi, my name is Deb Morgan. I was raised in Sumas. My father was a local historian on his own right, and he actually wrote a couple of unpublished works that were given to the local library. And after he passed away, I opened up the box of all of his material, and it was fabulous, the beautiful pictures and stories that I found. So I noticed that the material at the library was damaged and flooding, so I brought it home, and I had the thought that I'm going to scan and try to fix up the pictures that had damage due to the flood. But then I looked at it and thought, why don't we expand on this? Let's put a little more work into this. Well, it grew from there. I've all my life heard about the Sumas Roundup. It was something people talked about. Now, when I was a girl, we had the junior rodeo, but we didn't have a roundup like they used to have. Well, I started digging into that because that was a fascinating subject. And I found out that at one point, Sumas had the fourth largest rodeo in the United States. It's just mind-boggling because we're such a tiny little town. And here they were with the cowboys that went to Pendleton, Calgary, Cheyenne, and Sumas was on their circuit. The location of the rodeo, if any of you have been to Sumas, Surrey Street runs right down the main street there, right through the middle, to the border. And Highway 9 used to sort of curve off and make a big S-curve away from there. Now that goes straight through. And the roundup was actually located pretty close to where the junior rodeo is now. The picture was taken in the 40s, so it was after the heyday of the rodeo. These young ladies greeting us to the Sumas Roundup. Again, this is later. This is when they tried to revive it. It wasn't as successful at this time. This wasn't at its peak. But the young ladies were still very proud of their royalty status. From the left to right, you will see Alice Sumas, Caroline Thomas, and Barbara Clausen. Their married names added onto it because one of their descendants insisted I put it on. They weren't married at this time. Now, Caroline Thomas was the daughter of Ted Thomas, who was the son of Reese Thomas, one of the early settlers of Sumas, one of the original business owners. He was married to Louise Thomas, Louise Lambert, Russ Lambert's daughter. And Russ Lambert was one of the early founders of the town and very involved with the Lone Jack mines. This is a flyer telling people how to find it in 1928. The way the Roundup got started is that there used to be a little community fair, sort of like a county fair, but just a small town fair, and the fair building burnt down. And so they didn't have the same venues available, so they still tried to have a fair, and they had a couple bucking horses and tried to have a little racetrack around a couple stumps. And this was in 1922, and it was successful. It was popular. So in 1923, there were a bunch of ranchers and cowboys who were involved with some sort of a rodeo up in the lower mainland of Canada, coming back to Vancouver, and they volunteered to stop and put on an exhibition. Well, it became so successful that Sumas decided to make itself a roundup town. And at that particular function, they had 5,000 paid people show up to the first little roundup they had with the cowboys that came through. At its peak years, it had 35,000 people show up for the roundup. The red ribbon was a ribbon that was available for purchase as a souvenir. And people were pleased to have them like you would a postcard or anything else you'd buy. The gold ribbons were given out to the individuals that were deputized by the town marshal to sort of make sure everybody toed the line. Why Sumas? Think about it. It's prohibition. Canada was right next door. At the end of this, I will tell you a story about the prohibition. I actually spoke to a man who was a son of the border port director at the time, and he had a guy come in and wanting to go see the Roundup, and he came in to be inspected and was talking to the inspector at the desk and leaned against the desk, and he had a bladder wrapped around under his coat, and it burst, and all the alcohol spilled on the floor. And that was the sort of thing they were dealing with. Anyone could cross the border, get very happy, and come back and have a very happy Roundup. These are some of the men who were in the Roundup Association, some of the founding members. C. Miller was the man who owned the local sawmill, quite a person of renown, very involved with social functions. His wife was quite a socialite as well. That was Art Lynn. He owned the hardware store, and he was quite a character. He was a jokester, he was a bit of a clown, and he really hammed it up through the Roundup times. C.M. Enox was the man that owned the meat store. As well, he was a stockman. He had access to all the stock and was able to bring in what they needed. And he was the president. To be honest, I cannot find any information on Joe Brown yet. So here they are, welcoming everybody to the Roundup. Their big claim of fame in all their ads that they didn't take a single dollar for all their work that they did for the Roundup. Although you can pretty much guess that their businesses did very much profit from it. Here they are again posing. Art Lynn was known as the ludicrous cowboy. Because of his Swedish background and his jokes and poetry that he would do, making mockery of his heritage as well as the Roundup cowboy attitude. And he was quite a clown. There he was doing a mock Indian dance, I guess. Not very politically correct, but obviously having a good time. I had the good fortune of getting to know his grandson, who'd been giving me a lot of different information, and he provided a lot of pictures for me. So he was a little more serious. He was more of the organizer. He's the one that took trips to make things happen. One of the roundups, he went up to Vancouver to one of the sporting goods stores and ordered a high-end saddle, stock saddle, to be brought back as a presentation to the all-round cowboy. He was the one that arranged for the livestock to be brought from down south. He brought up Brahma bulls. He also arranged livestock organization from Eastern Washington to bring things over as well. They would actually bring in on the train several train loads of stock to provide for the railroad. And there he is again. They made a trip, and I'm not certain what year the trip was, to be honest. And they went down to Tacoma to promote the Roundup at the elk convention. So they had one of the Hessel Gray buses, And I have a gentleman who's going to be able to help me identify all the people in that bus. But you can see Artland and you can see Enoch. But they are getting ready to head out on a big road trip to Tacoma promoting the Roundup. But one of the things that was interesting, they got down to Tacoma and Artland got really silly and went into a restaurant and started spouting off poetry to all the people in the restaurant. There's Artland hamming it up. I was told that it was a big joke to pretend to be drunk. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but they're smiling. The Sumas Roundup, royalty, and this is in 1928. The young lady, Helen, she was from Canada, and Alice Wells was from Sumas. They had a parade, a big parade, in which all the businesses would go down the street and celebrate the start of the Roundup. And this float won the first prize. Of course, it was conveniently owned by Clarence Miller, one of the association officers, but nonetheless, that house was just torn down, probably when it went to somebody's backyard, like a play yard, and it stayed there until it got torn down about 10 years ago. They had a fair, they had carnival rides, they even had airplane rides. There was an airfield about 1.5 miles to the west of town, and a couple of gentlemen were running a couple of airplanes. They'd go to Seattle, bring people in. Other planes would come in to land there to come to the Roundup. And again, I have a story about that. In 1928, the news said that there were 9,000 cars in Sumas. I don't think Sumas is big enough to hold 9,000 cars, to be honest. Even when we have a long border lineup, that might be 100, 200, maybe a little more. But to have 9,000 cars in Sumas, that's mind-boggling to me. Now, they also were quite proud of the fact that they brought in the natives from the Colville Reservation and the Yakima Reservation. And they came and would give exhibitions and give dances and performances as well. My friend that was Artland's grandson sent me a copy of it, like a picture that his father took. The main ringleader who brought the Yakimas over was Chief Saluskin. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, to be honest. But he was quite renowned to being an advocate, and he is actually one that went to Calvin Coolidge to get him to sign a bill giving the natives full citizenship of the United States. And he came to Sumas almost every year to the Roundup and brought his family and everybody, and they would do their performances. Then they would have their opening ceremony, of course. And of course, the president, Enoch, would have to be in the middle of it. They took a view from the inside of the grandstand. At first, there wasn't a huge grandstand like that was built in 24, and it was a major undertaking, and it could hold 8,000 people. What I find fascinating is looking at the announcer stand. Would you really want to climb up there? There was a clown that came on a regular clown, or a bullfighter, as they would now call him. His name was Homer Holcomb. He was very, very well known. He won an all-round cowboy championship at Calgary before he became a clown, and he had two trained mules that he would take out with him, and one of them was Mae West, and I can't remember the name of the other one, and he would do all sorts of stunts with them. He was quite famous, and he was in the movies with Gene Autry, Hopalong Cassidy, and he was inducted in the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame. So, and again, he was a regular at Sumas. At first, they were asking people to come, and after the first couple of years, they had applications of all the well-known people because it was growing into such a large venue that everybody wanted to come to Sumas. There was actually quite a problem of finding places for everybody to stay. These two gentlemen were bringing livestock over from the Colville reservation. One of their grandsons contacted me and sent me that picture and said that his grandfather was there and brought over the livestock, and they also rode. And that's his father. And I'm not too sure if that's actually in the roundup or if that's in the back in practice, because I don't see the bleachers around the edge like they normally have. Ollie Osborne, she was a very famous cowgirl. Again, she traveled the circuits. She was well beloved. She was involved with the trick riding, the movies. There she is on the stagecoach races, and they traveled all over BC, looking for stagecoaches that they could use for the races. Duck wagon races, of course. Look at the size of the grandstand behind them. That was huge. The first year they had it, when it was in 23, they had a small grandstand, but because of disorganization, they couldn't get the bleachers in time, so everybody had to stand around the arena. And so it was a little bit awkward. And amazingly enough, they still had quite a crowd. People paid $1.25 to get in. Children under 12 was 50 cents. And if you wanted reserved seating, it was 50 cents extra. And if you wanted a box seat, it was $2. Chariot race, which must have been amazing. I can't imagine handling the horses like that. Again, advertising some of the exhibitors that were there. This is an interesting picture. You can't see it very well. There is a woman that was very famous named Mabel Strickland. She was inducted in the Pro Rodeo. She was inducted in the Cowgirls Hall of Fame, Pendleton Hall of Fame. She was in the movies. I saw a picture of her with Douglas Fairbank. She was an outstanding trick rider, and that's her as well coming in on that. Some advertisements in the local newspapers. They actually had really pretty high cash prizes for the exhibitors, the performers. They did pretty well. He was one of the most popular exhibitors. He was famous in Pendleton, very famous in Pendleton, and he came here. I am reluctant to say what his nickname was because it is very, in my opinion, crude, and I won't say it. But he went by a nickname. When he was in Pendleton, which is here, this is a Pendleton picture, not Sumas, He actually won a major contest, but the judge instead deemed a white person a winner. The crowd was so indignant, they passed the hat, and he made more money than the winner did. Again, here's Mabel Strickland, and she was at Sumas. And she was a stunningly beautiful young woman, and she was just such a soul lady. There was an article in the newspaper, kind of faded and hard to see, advertising her being at Sumas. She came about 4 years. There she is. There she is trick riding at Sumas. There she is again. And now we're just going to look at some exciting people getting mangled. Again, I have been trying to track down stories on the different cowboys. It's actually quite hard to determine. Some of them are just local guys. Again, take a look at the announcer doll. Like a real bladder. They actually got a contract at one point and brought in a professional announcer, and it was the whole headlines about the fancy sound system they had. They also had two 30-piece bands in the grandstand playing music through the whole thing. Yes, that looked painful. Norman Cowan, I have found lots of reference to him in the newspapers. I found that he was there from the very first rodeo to the very end, but I have not yet been able to trace any history on him. This gives you a good view of part of the ground. And now this isn't the big grandstand. These are the bleachers around the edge. And if you remember the young lady standing on the arch, this is the back of the arch where they were standing. There was a very large crowd there. And this is the grandstand. Now, the horse barns were down the Haverstick Village, probably about a half a mile from what I'm told. It wasn't right on site where people could keep their horses and their livestock for the performances. There were lots and lots of problems, like I say, with the booze and with the different smuggling issues. Now we're getting to the dance. Before I go into the dance, though, I do want to tell you an interesting story. In about 1924, they decided they wanted to promote the Roundup by going down to Longview and being in the parade. So they built a wheeled Bronco. Now, don't ask me what it looked like. I can't find a picture of it. Named Sparkplug. And they pulled it down, or drove, but I'm not sure, to be honest, down to with a convoy of 15 cars. They got up at 6 in the morning. Now, we didn't have I-5 in those days, but they started down and they got as far as Everson, and one of the ladies' cars got a flat tire, so they had to, let me stand corrected. Sparkplug lost a shoe. So they had to retire the spark plug. And then they got down to past Bellingham, and one of the women had a flat tire. So they had to change the tire, and that took a little time. And then they caravaned down to Auburn, and in order to avoid being struck by a sedan, Sparkplug, the driver of Sparkplug, a young man named Sar, had to swerve and went into the ditch with Sparkplug and broke the windshield and broke a spring. It took 3 hours to get spark plug fixed. So they got back on the road and they made it down to Longview at 11:30 at night. And they were in the parade the next day. And all the cars were festooned with banners, and they had one of the well-known cowboys by the name of Cyclone riding Sparkplug during the parade. And then they came home without as much excitement. The dance venue. One of the big things they did was there were many things going on. There was more than just the roundup. And I could make this program go on for a long time. They had boxing matches, very big ones, that they used the school for. And people go there and gamble and have a great time at the boxing matches. They had the roundup dances. The first one was held in a little private hall called West Hall, owned by the West family. The next year, they built the Roundup Hall, and it was used as a skating rink in the 60s. But the Roundup Hall was quite large, and they would cram it full. There would be up to 700 people in it. And it could get a little bit rowdy, and it was loud and boisterous, and they decorated by hanging cardboard bucking horses from the ceiling and going all out. And they'd have live band. Now there's a story, and it's quite a complicated story, so I need a little help with my notes. In 1928, they were getting ready they were having their dance. It was the end of the roundup, it was Monday night. They had their last rodeo for the day, and everybody was happy, thanks to the border. All the special police, which of course included all the gentlemen that were part of the association, were attended. And Sheriff Fraser from Bellingham, from the Sheriff's Department, decided to go there, send a couple of his deputies down to look in on the situation, because there were rumors that things weren't as they should be. So they go down there, and one of the cowboys, by the name, his name was, not that it really matters, but he was getting drunk. In fact, he was getting very drunk. And one of the girls complained because, he was complaining because he got kicked by a girl. Well, the dance floor was so crowded, no one could move without bumping anyone anyway. Well, the two deputies from Bellingham went in and decided to escort him out because he was really drunk and take him back to his hotel where he could sleep it off. As they stepped outside, he turned and asked if he could go back in and tell the young woman that he was dancing, talk to the young woman that he was dancing with, and let her know what was going on. So they let him go to go back in and talk to this young lady. Well, there are two views. There's the Bellingham view, and there's the Sumas view. The Bellingham view was the Sumas police was under influence and attempted to interfere with 3 deputies, sheriff, who were taking charge of men who were drunk at the big dance. Sheriff Leo Williams, Deputy Sheriff Leo Williams, had drawn a gun on a number of police and citizens who were attempting to manhandle him and take away the man from him whom he was taking from the hall in a drunken condition. Sheriff Deputy Marshal Gastron struck Williams over the head with a pair of handcuffs, which the deputy had attempted to manacle with him, but only succeeded to snag one arm. The 3 deputy sheriffs involved in the affair were Jonah Doe, Art Reynolds, and Leo Williams. The affair is said to have been the most disgraceful in the annals of Whatcom County, with one set of officers trying to prevent another set from enforcing the law. Problems arose because of the proximity to the border and access to all the booze they wanted. Russ Lambert, who was candidate for the legislature, the mayor, and a number of the deputy marshals were involved in this situation. Now, it ended up that they got into a big tussle and started arguing. The Sumas officers, which were sort of the people who were deputized on the site for the event, felt that the people in Bellingham didn't have a right to involve themselves with and arrest their own people. That was their job, not anyone else. But the Bellingham guys say that the Sumas police were as drunk as the people they were trying to deal with. And so they tried to arrest the Sumas police deputies, and the Sumas deputies were trying to arrest the people from the sheriff's office. And it turned into a mob riot, and it spilled out into front of the building and got very rambunctious. So finally, they had to draw a gun, and finally the crowd backed off when the gentleman from Bellingham pulled a gun and told people to step back because he felt threatened. The story is that Russ Lambert, who was a lawyer and running for the legislature at that time, was there as well, yelling at everybody, "What are the charges? What are the charges?" And nobody was answering him. Now, if you hear from the Sumas perspective, they claimed they weren't drunk, that they had situations under control, that the guys were out of order and shouldn't have been there interfering. They also said that Enoch was the one that got hit by the handcuff, not the other way around. And he had a gas in his head to prove it. And yes, it gets spilled out into the thing. The people in Bellingham said there was a woman climbing on the back of the main deputy sheriff that instigated this and scratching him up. And it was just an all-out riot. But the Sumas people took quite offense that they felt could have been avoided if they just let things be handled by their own people. The end result of all this, they came to Bellingham shortly after that in an attempt to get the men relieved that started the problem. The Sumas people had a committee, they went there, but when they left, their town marshal, Gaston, was relieved of duty. And at the next event, in 1929, it was the sheriff from Bellingham that managed the whole affair. In 1926, I can maybe tell you the name if I can find it. Garney Willis, Cyclone Smith, Han Ritzers, Herb Media, and Henry Shuttleworth. They were all the winners of the 1926 Roundup. They were all British Columbian cowboys. The Roundup started going, I think that fight didn't help the Roundup. It caused a lot of hard feelings. Another thing was coming up, the Depression. The money wasn't there. And Roundups all around the United States were shutting down. They had a meeting in 1929. They didn't have quite as good of a showing. And they were just starting to decide that it wasn't, they might as well quit while the going was good. In 1923, they had 7,000 people. In 1924, they had 22,000 people. 1925, 35,000 people. 1926, 35,000 people. 1927, they only had 17,000 people because it rained the whole weekend. And there was mud up knee-deep all over the field. And they had to cancel some of the activity because it couldn't be done in the mud. But Lynn went out there and met up with one of the clowns, and they started a big mud fight as part of the entertainment. In 1928, there were 25,000 people. 1929, it was dropping to 20. 1930, they didn't have it. They canceled it. Now, in 1927, when they had the mud, they offered 10,000 free tickets on Saturday for anyone under 15. They only got about 3,000 kids. But one lucky boy from Linden won a draw, and she got to go home with a dapple gray little pony, which he went out and got to ride around the arena to the cheer of the crowd for winning this pony. And I'm sure his parents were impressed. I thought it was bad enough for my son brought home a goldfish from the fair, but he got to bring home a pony. So, there you go. They tried to revive the rodeo. They really did. They decided another venue came in. The gentleman tried to bring it back to life in the 30s. And he even went as far as to invite President Roosevelt. It didn't work. He denied he wouldn't come. They had 8,000 people show up. And then when the economy started turning around, there was a war. Where were the cowboys? They were going off to war. Secondly, the border became tougher, and it was harder to bring livestock back and forth across the border. There were just too many things getting in the way to make it successful. So, in the middle of the 40s, they determined that it was just a done thing, and they auctioned off the grandstand for wood. And I don't know if any of you knew Laverne Hoffman from Sumas. She was a well-loved school teacher. Her husband bought the wood and built a house, and it's still standing today. And that's all that's left of the original Roundup.